I'm raising 56 million for a biotechnology company, and I'm going to show you the behind the scenes of how you can get in contact with institutional investors, family offices, angel, private equity firms, venture VCs, corporate arms, things like that. If you are a company and you are raising investment, whether that's your software company, biotechnology, whatever the case may be. Biotechnology or healthcare is an extremely difficult industry. So if you can crack this, you can pretty much crack a lot of other industries. Technology is also pretty hard. But to give you some context, we are working with a biotechnology company. They are developing a vaccine for pandemic readiness. That's how they have it packaged. And we are raising 6 million for a seeding round so that they're going to go to clinical trials and then human clinical trials. And then we have 40 million that's coming in later this year, around 40 something million. Total is up to around 56 million, and we've been helping them with their investment now and also helping them with, later stage, deep stage VCs. That's going to cover the other 40 for later. We have gotten them in contact with a lot of companies. This is just some of them. We have a bunch more. We've gotten in contact with Apollo Health Ventures, Spark Labs, TGP, Metrodora, and Cancer Focus Fund is a big one too. So there's a lot of companies that we have gotten in contact with. Primarily we're looking at VCs. We're looking at family offices is a big one for any mission-driven purposes. And also our corporate VCs are a big one too. That is the funds that we are looking to target for this company. I'm going to show you how we have gotten in contact with these people without networking, without any of the traditional methods, and it's quite hard. Because this company, before they were working with us, they pretty much tried everything. They are currently working with brokerages. It's not yielding any results at all. They were sending emails. Their business development director was sending 10 to 15 emails a day. They weren't getting any traction there. I wonder why. And they were going to events like JPM. They were going to healthcare events for networking purposes, which was very expensive. And before they worked with us, they were planning to go to JPM, but they had 0 meetings lined up for JPM. And after they worked with us, they had 16 for JPM alone. So this just shows how expensive it is, and how a lot of these companies would just go to events willy-nilly and just see how it goes without any prior meetings being booked. And also, they were doing LinkedIn DMs. This was probably the worst acquisition channel for investors. They weren't getting any responses at all. So LinkedIn was probably the worst one out of this 4. But when we came in, what we did was we helped them get in contact with 28 investors for this current round, and we've helped them get in contact with 37 deep stage investors for later. So these investors either want to see a human trial data or they want to invest later when they have a lead investor in. But this 26 is going to be more mission driven. They're interested in the actual technology. They want to invest in the early stage, which they are right now. So that is the total. And this was done in about 2 months. So in about 2 months, we've got them in contact with this many investors. So quite the achievement. What did you say? And we did all this with our AI. I'm going to show you how we did it so you can replicate the exact same. If you're doing investor acquisition, you need help with getting in contact with investors, you can apply these exact same strategy and you will get the results too. So hope it helps. The reason we are able to pull this off with AI, and the reason we did it so well, is because we have something called signal mapping, which I'll delve into. When the opportunity does arise with these investors, we were extremely fast with the routing the opportunities to our client. We had a thesis fit analysis, which is important for investors. You want investors with similar theses, or things like mission-driven investors can be adjacent theses, right? It can apply to multiple domains, but the overarching thesis is mission driven, so it can fall into most healthcare categories, right? So we use AI to perform that analysis, and we also did multi-touch point follow-ups because that is extremely important. So we're going to delve all into that right now. So how do you actually find these investors, these hedge funds, these VCs? A lot of people like family offices, rich family offices, corporate VCs, corporate arms, private equity firms. How do you actually find these investors? Well, I will show you how we did it. So we set up an AI monitor that pretty much scoured the whole digital market. So we're talking about Sales Navigator. We're talking about, the JP Morgan healthcare event. So before our client went to the JP Morgan healthcare event, we scraped the whole data for the attendees, sponsors, and we pretty much send them all a message, and that's how we were able to line them up with a lot of conversations. We also use PitchBook for the private market access for investors. This is more expensive, but it's worth it. We use Crunchbase for public market for investors. So this is more. So these two are probably more traditional databases for investors. Most people will probably use Crunchbase. If you're more serious, you probably use PitchBook. So we also use these. We use the JP Morgan attendee list. We use LinkedIn Sales Navigator for announcements for funds being announced, for impact funds, things like that. And also this is a big one, and that is government SEC filings. So in the US, if an investment is made in a company, there's something called the Form D. Has to be submitted to announce the investment. So we were able to look at investors that submitted the Form D in the past, let's say 5 years, and then we were able to actually match it, right? So we just search like vaccine Form Ds, and then so these we get investors that invested in vaccine specifically in the last 5 years that have submitted a Form D. So we can say, hey, I saw you invested in this vaccine company. We're a very similar thesis match. This could be worth a conversation, and that did brilliantly. So that is a very, very underrated strategy that we had the AI agent go through. So we say, hey, go through the SEC filings. It's extremely mundane, so that's why we have that AI do it. Go through all the documents, the government documents, and get some data on people that actually have wrote the check for the investment. So this is not theoretical. So that was the primary 5 channels that we went through, and how we did it was we had the AI actually detect a signal in the market. So it's like, hey, on LinkedIn, people post impact funds being announced, or maybe they're going to JPM and they've announced that, or they have the Form D submitted, like I said. So the AI is able to, once a signal is being detected, it says, hey, this investor has announced it, this VC has announced it, an impact fund, let's go on it. So that was the first thing we did. Once the identification was done, you can set up an AI to actually feed all that data on the actual company's portfolio, their thesis statement, their funds that's available, the news, the recent news. You can pull this off multiple APIs, like you can use news APIs, or you can use predict leads is a good one for recent news of the company. So you can pull a lot of these APIs that are digitally monitoring the news, and then you can use that data for that company. And then this is very helpful when the AI actually screens the investor saying, hey, is this investor actually relevant to what we're doing? Because we don't want to just send messages, email to people that aren't relevant. That's going to actually hurt our domains. And especially with these investor networks, they can be quite sensitive, because if one investor say, hey, this guy is just sending everybody a message, these investors work in networks. They invest with each other. They're like a syndicate. So you don't want to taint your reputation one of them, because that's going to often lead to an impact where not everybody, but all the investor group is going to see you in a negative light. So that was extremely important for the relevance angle. And then it's also just going to help with weeding. Don't waste space and capacity sending to people that are investing in, technology or software. That has nothing to do with you, right? And once, this is the magic here. So I'll show you an example. So once it actually finds the investor, it gets in contact with them with a personal touch. And this was the email structure that we sent out. So we have the first paragraph that is going through the icebreaker, we call it. That's going through a personal company insight, showing that we did our homework. This was all done through AI, by the way. So we have that. The second paragraph is a little bit of an introduction on who we are, what we're doing, how there's some relevance to what we're doing to what they invest in. And the third one is more deep dive on a thesis fit. So it's like, hey, you invested in this company with similar, or hey, given that you have you like to invest in infectious disease with this case, we're pretty similar, obviously. And then the AI is able to identify little snippets about our client that is relevant to the actual investor. We don't want to overwhelm them, because there's so many angles we could attack this at. We don't want to do that. We want to be like a sniper. So we choose 1 to 2 angles that resonate most with the investor's thesis statement, maybe the actual managing partner's beliefs, maybe his daughter. An example was we had an angle where a company, the actual managing partner's daughter, or the founder, the fund's founder's daughter had cancer, and that's what motivated them to start this fund. So we were able to play on that, and that was also a really, really good angle, right? So we didn't really have to go into even the semantics or the actual return on investment angle of it, right? We can just go, hey, this is obviously meaningful for you. We're trying to develop something to help with that, with the potential of helping with that. So that was what we did. And we have a soft CTA, so we were saying like, hey, do you want to meet during JPM week? So that was the CTA that we worked with, which is a great reinforcer, because often with the CTA, you want to imply that you have some sort of authority. So just saying, hey, do you want to meet at JPM, insinuates that you're going to JPM, which insinuates that you're a real company, right? Because not everybody's going to JPM. So that's extremely important to add these nuanced implied messaging that you're a real person, because with email, people are quite often skeptical, so you want to actually break that barrier. So that's what we did, and we sent out a bunch of these emails, and that's how we were able to get in contact with, it was like what, 28 plus, was it 37? Let me go back. Yeah, 28 plus 37. So a lot, over 60 investors. So we were able to get in contact with that. We also have probably another 40 that's, we're keeping on file. So we're saying, hey, these people are, they want to keep us on file. They said they're not ready. So in total, I think we have something like 90 something. It's probably like 95-ish investors that are interested or engaging with what we're doing. 27 or 28, I don't remember. I think 28 of them are currently engaging they're doing due diligence, they're going to the next stage, they have multiple meetings, and 37 is still waiting for later clinical trials in other data. If you are doing investor acquisition, which isn't talked about enough often, these are some of the strategies that you can apply, especially with finding companies or investors or VCs or funds that already have a thesis match with a proven check being written for exact same type of company that you are with the government SEC filings, at least in the US. And you can also set up a bunch of these other monitors, AI monitors with API calls and things like that to monitor the private market and also public markets like Crunchbase or announcements on LinkedIn. So there's quite a lot of technical aspects that go behind the scenes with the AI, but I'm not going to sit here and talk to you about APIs and RSS signals and things like that. That's quite the nerdy stuff. But either way, apply these principles for copywriting, screening, and identifying the investors, and you will get the results. Maybe not at the scale that we do, but you will definitely do better than what you are already probably doing. So I hope this has been helpful, and that is a little bit of the behind the scenes of how we are raising $56 million for one of the hardest industry, biotechnology, healthcare. So I hope it's been helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.